Welcome to the Disruption Lab. This is a podcast that we have created to highlight the innovators and the disruptors, those people who are changing industry and changing the way we think about the world around us. This moment for me, when we start these episodes or when we talk to our guests, I always want to highlight, how I maybe met the person or how I know the individual, any background we have. And this one for me is, try not to get emotional about this episode for me because Mark is the space that we're in today, Keystone Collab, this space wouldn't be what it is today, literally, physically, if it wasn't for this man. Our next guest here. So Mark Irvin is the founder and CEO of KC Mass. He is the, I believe, founder of Sight back when it first started. I know you've handed that off since then. And he's now doing an amazing amount of work, advocacy work, and so on. And we'll talk about what he's doing. But Mark, thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
Thanks for doing this.
Every time I see everything going on and when I come down to this space, I'm like, wow. I had something to do with that.
Absolutely. So, you and I first met when we first started this project. I was doing a lot of community engagement work, really trying to understand where did the community stand on a concept like this. What kind of things did we need to be thinking about as it relates to, serving those who really could benefit from an innovation district. We wanted to take a different approach than what other innovation districts around the world had taken in terms of just build the big structures, just bring the big anchors. If things go well, then you can find a way to be more inclusive, once you've spun up the innovation and the entrepreneurial work. We wanted to take and kind of shift that model. So I had been doing some visits around the community and I was, I forget how we ended up in that meeting.
You had left a E-ship meeting.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
And I reached out to you via LinkedIn. I'm like, you're doing this Keystone District. Who have you checked in with in the hood?
Yeah. So I went and met with Mark, who was running Sight at the time, and we met over, what was the name of that church that we were at, where you were?
It used to be Presbyterian, but that was at PC Computers for Everyone, because we had the Sight location office up in there at that time.
Yeah. And we sat down and had the opportunity to talk about what you were doing with Sight, and that part of the conversation, what you were doing didn't last very long because you had more questions for me than I had for you at that point in time. But that's how we first met.
That's right.
And you tell me a little bit about what Sight was doing at the time.
Sight stands for, SITE stands for Social Impact, Technology, and Engineering. And the organization, the basis of it is introducing youth. Our primary age group was juniors and seniors in high school. And what we did was we were introducing them to STEM alternative career pathways. In that space at that time, it was all focused on advanced manufacturing. And we were talking about 3D printing in 2013, 2014. And people were like, wow, that's a novel approach. What would you ever do with something like that? It's like 3D print, everything's 3D printed today. So now it's like off and running. Now, Sight organization now has been led by Zachary Ocean-Banjo, and he's doing amazing things. He's converted it to a community housing development organization. So we'll be developing some housing for them.
And you're still involved. He's running the organization, but you're still involved.
Right. Well, I'm involved as a contractor.
Perfect.
Right.
And I think we'll get into that a little bit, kind of what you're up to. So the second time I ran into Mark, Mark and I had developed a relationship through that. I think Mark put me to the test on whether or not I was going to do Keystone the way he thought the community would need it to be done. And then we ran into each other as part of the Urban Land Institute. So Mark was part of a program called Ready. We were getting ready to open up this space, and there was an opportunity for me to identify a general contractor or somebody that was going to be able to do this. Now, I didn't know at the time, because I'd met Mark as a technologist. I'd met Mark as an educator, as a technologist, somebody who was running a nonprofit. Didn't know that Mark had been, for years prior to this, been in the built industry, in the built environment and doing work as a contractor and work as a GC and so on. So for me, it was kind of a natural fit. We'd already met each other. We'd already had the relationship. Mark had just come out of the Ready program. And for me, it was, hey, would you be willing to help me out with this? I don't know that I want to go through the rigors of, with this space, hiring all of the other entities that I needed to do to get the work done. And so you stepped in and helped out and really kind of led the development of this space.
Yeah, I remember you saying, Mark, you know what? I don't want to hire an architect. I don't want to hire a general contractor. Can you work with me? Can you help me out? I'm like, sure.
Yeah, it was, we were a fledgling nonprofit, just trying to get our feet underneath us and try to get this space open. So I appreciate the help there. And so Mark helped us develop, all of the built environment that you see here at Keystone CoLab, the stage, the bar, finishing out the space. It was just a big empty space that had been previously held by, I think it was Hurt Reynolds. This was their office at the time. A warehouse space is all it was. Converted these offices over here behind us and so on. And so that was the second opportunity I got to work with Mark and really kind of understand the work he did. And so we opened in June of 2022, or we opened in February of 2022 is when we got the work done and when we started the space. We did the ribbon cutting in May. And so 2022 was really an eventful year for Keystone.
It was really an eventful year for me.
It was an eventful year for you as well.
Yeah, you're right.
So when I met Mark, just to give you some personal background on, I had an immense amount of admiration for the man, not just because of the technology background he had, the community background he had, the nonprofit work. This is a man that was biking 40 miles a day, was active on multiple projects as a general contractor, was one of the most physically active individuals that I knew. And so on October 1st of 2022, walk us through kind of that experience for you. What happened?
It was a really good day, October 1, 22, and the weather was warm, and I had a really bad cold. And I took some Mucinex DX, really heavy duty. I wanted to get rid of it really quick. And I was in bed at 1 a.m. and woke up and going down the hallway to just turn up the thermostat and slipped and fell. I guess I blacked out. My neck hit the door jamb, knocked my C5 through C7 out, paraplegic, paralyzed chest down. 2 years and 5 months ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. But who's counting?
Yeah.
Right. But yeah.
Every day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm really blessed. I think it was a mission from God, really. I really do. Here's what I think God told me. He said, Mark, I don't think you've been totally obedient to me. So you know what? You've been setting me aside a little bit. So what I need to do is set you down, young man. I'm going to set you down, but I'm not going to take you down. As a matter of fact, I'm going to elevate you. So when I come into a room now in this wheelchair, I say, hey, the shortest man in the room is a ride. But I really know that I got a really tall order going on. And as we speak further on, it's all about inspiring people to know that even though you have such a traumatic injury that is so life-changing, it's like, 22 was going to be like an amazing year for me. I do real estate development, so we had just bought a building on 12 acres, commercial building to repurpose it, so I was going to develop it and GC it. I got the real estate commissions off of it. It would have been a tremendous year for me. And then, boom, all changed out, all in a moment's notice.
What was your mindset when this happened? I can only imagine, right? Like, this is such a life-altering event for anybody. You've always been kind of, and this isn't just my opinion. I know so many other people who share this opinion of you. You are one of the most positive people. You always have been. You've always been kind of like this beacon of light, this beacon of hope. You've always been this vibrancy in a room, those types of things. So when this happened, for a lot of us, it was, of all people, how and why could this happen to Mark Irvin? What was your mindset when this happened?
Phew. It was a spin out, man. A real spin out. It's like, why? You got to question why. I'm not harming anybody. I'm not doing any, not bad. Doing good, trying to be positive in the world. And to fall down and end up being paraplegic, wow, it's life-changing. I mean, every now and then, still now I get my butt kicked, from the spasms from waist down. My legs are like spasmodic. As I share with you in a conversation, I share with people often that the hardest thing that I do in a day, and I can do a full day, a long day. I, start about 6:30 in the morning. But the hardest thing that I do physically in a day is putting on my pants. Yeah. Because the spasms are so bad. When I lay down horizontally, the legs just go clack. They like, we doing something else. And so it takes 20 minutes to put on a pair of trousers. So, when I think that I'm coming out fly, y'all just don't know what kind of work I did to get looking like this.
Yeah, it takes you a little more than the rest of us, right? That's fair. But it was, as you and I have discussed previously, those are dark days, obviously.
Yeah.
Like when that first happens.
Uh-huh.
And you had a moment when, when it first occurred and, the doctors had informed you, you had to make a quick decision.
Oh, man. Quick decision is right. You know what? I remember when we got into the emergency room, the doctor told me, the emergency room surgeon told me, Mark, you got 15 minutes to make a decision on emergency surgery. And I'm like, because I'm still coherent. But let me back up, from when I fell and I was in my house. The fire department came in and my wife had already informed him he can't move. So the fire department, they got down, so I said, sir, can you feel this? Touch my feet and touch it. He said, I think you may be paralyzed, but we can't make that call. So we'll get you over to the hospital. So my hallway is only 42 inches wide, so they couldn't get a full gurney through there with two men, right? So they had a tarp, and they put me on the tarp, and they picked me up, and they didn't put a C-collar on me. And I said, stabilize my damn neck. Wow. I couldn't believe my head was did like that one time when they picked me up, so they laid me back down, and then they put the C-collar on me. So then they said, well, where you want to go? So I said, well, they gave me a couple options on hospitals, and I knew which one I wasn't going to go to, but I ended up going to where I wanted to go, which was St. Luke's, and on the plaza. And we rode in there, and my sister, she works kind of head of security over there. So I told them, call over there and tell them that her brother's coming in. So they had the doors like rolling out the carpet. I'm like, even though I'm sitting here paralyzed, can't see nothing, can't move, right? I can still eyeball everything, right? But I roll in there, and the surgeon says, well, Mark, you got 15 minutes to make a decision on emergency surgery. I'm like, 15 minutes? What's that about? He said, each time you move your mouth or your face, you severing more nerves, and you could become worse or you could die right there. That's the first time I said, boy, you talking about shut my mouth up. I didn't want to say another word. So my wife, she bogarted right through there. She said, so will you promise, will you, what's the guarantee if he takes that emergency surgery? Will he be okay? Surgeon looked there and said, I can't guarantee that. His damage is really, the damage he sustained is really bad, it's severe. So, but we losing time right now while we're talking about it. So my wife, she's a pretty strong woman, you know her.
Oh yeah, Sharon, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so she looked down at my face, she said, Mark, you go through this surgery, you come out of here because I need you, baby. I'm like, yeah, okay. She wasn't feeling it. My wife has a lot of discernment, right? So she knows me well. And see, in my mind, I'm disabled. I'm like, dude, you are useless. I'm ready to die. I'm ready to go. So here in my mind, I'm like, as soon as they get me through this, through the emergency room where they get ready to do some surgery, I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. Put DNR on me, because I'm not coming back through, right? This is my mind. So Sharon, she picked up on that in me saying, yeah, okay. She got down in my face and she hollered at me. She said, baby, you go through that surgery, you come back out of here because I need you. I let out the biggest F-bomb in that emergency room. It blew him away because I was like, ugh, she's on to me. So the anesthesiologist, he came up on me. He said, Mark, and this is, the Chiefs are going to Super Bowl. He had on his hat and everything and gear. He's like, Mark, here's the play. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put so many of these CCs in you. I'm going to take you down. I'm going to bring you up. And then we're going to rest. And you're going this. And I'm like looking at you like, dude, I'm getting ready to stain your record tonight. I'm not coming back through this way. I knew I wasn't coming back through. I know in my mind's eye, I can just suppress myself to where I'm like, he's out. But with that, I'm glad God did let me have my way. Really.
Yeah. Sharon did let you have your way, just to be clear.
Yeah, no, she sure wasn't. She's gonna beat me out of there. So, but I didn't know how much people loved me until I came out of there, and a good friend of mine, she was all just, Mark, you need to make a video and tell people where you've been for 8 weeks. You've been out 8 weeks, nobody seen you, nobody talking to you in rehab. So I got back to the hotel because the house wasn't modified yet, finished out. And I got in front of the mirror and I made this video. And I have no idea it was going to end up being 12 minutes long. But I got on these yellow anti-skid socks, some green looking top. When I look at it now, I'm like, that's Big Bird.
Yeah.
So I gave a video of that and told people what I would, what would happen, and told them that, now, this wheelchair is my legs now. And man, I tell you, the outpouring support and people giving me encouragement, woo-wee, some of that stuff, it made me cry, ugly cry. Because I didn't know so many people were touched, lives were touched, in just me hanging out. I'm just Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
You've had that impact for sure. And I don't want to spend tonight focusing on that. I just wanted to set up the story for what you're doing now, because having come through that moment where you wanted to quit, Sharon wouldn't let you. The mind is an amazing thing. The mind hurt her. And you came through the other side, and now what you're doing, you and I had a conversation here this week, and you've come out the other side of this thing, and you're doing some amazing work for people, and you use this opportunity as a way to elevate, like you said when we started this conversation, elevate the work that you were doing and kind of change your focus. So I'm hoping this works. Mark just sent me this clip. This is, let's see if I can get this. Hopefully the sound works on this. Oh, no. Let me fix this real quick. Oh. Sorry, folks. Should have had.
Life will take you on some turns, that's for sure. My dad, he imposed and taught me metaphysics when I was a youngster. So I was raised mind over matter over everything. So mind, whatever the mind can achieve, the body can conceive, can achieve.
Is even though you suffer a really traumatic injury that's life-changing, because I tell you, becoming a paraplegic is really life-changing. Life's not over. You can still thrive. It's not just about surviving. And that's my mode. The reason why I'm starting a platform called Mark Irvin is because this is going to allow me to go into the weeds, into the detail for two target markets of both the healthcare system focus and the built environment or the construction and design industry to promote self-advocacy for healthcare and building and designing and constructing barrier-free, accessible routes and product for the construction industry. So in the Mark Irvin platform, we'll do keynote presentations. We will do curriculum for continuing education credits. That is Mark Irvin's platform, and focus is in that world of physical disability, because a better accessible environment is better for all of us.
Man, it's an incredible opportunity that you have. I want to talk about kind of these focus areas that you've got. and why. You made the comment about your hallway, you know, the night that this happened. And since then, I know, you know, we talk about like even this space, when we built this space. Right. When I said, hey, will you come do this with me? Will you come do, you know, be a guest on the podcast? Your first question to me, remember what your first question was?
You got a ramp?
You got a ramp? And I wanted to say, well, the guy who built the space didn't put a ramp in, but you know, that seems like that had maybe been too close to home. But you notice these things now.
Yes.
Right? And
man.
you have the two focus areas that you have. Let's talk about the healthcare piece first and why that's so important.
Sure. You know what, there's an old adage that says the squeaky wheel gets the oil. It is so, so true. Because when I was in rehab, they had me in a power chair because they say all spinal cord injury people have to be in a power chair. And I'm like, okay, whatever, all right. So we rolling around in the power chair. And one day I found a big old sunny window, and I love this watching the sunset. So I got in that power chair and I reclined and I leaned back and got so comfortable, I fell asleep for an hour in the wheelchair. So when I woke up and looked at the time, an hour passed, I told my OT, take this chair away, I never want to see it again. They like, what, something happened? Is it broken? I'm like, anytime you can take a couch around with you or take a nap with you at any given time, that's not gonna be good, right? So they said, well, you know, we don't send people home in power chairs who suffer a spinal cord injury. It's against our rules. I'm like, I'm not going out of here with no power chair. You give me a manual chair. So they say we got to sign a lot of papers. And at the time, you know, from a C5 injury, it controls your index finger and your thumb. So when I was writing to try and write, to write, my letters were all 2 inches in size because I couldn't control the fingers, right? So they had a big gauze wrapped around the ink pen. And so, at any rate, for the manual chair, one of my wheelie friends, I call people in the wheelchairs my wheelie friends. That's what I call them now. You know, not really friends, but they really, really are my wheelie friends. So one lady came by there and she had a motor on her chair, the Smart Drive. And I'm like, hey, where you get that at? What's that about? And she's like, oh, it propels you, you know, save you a lot of energy too. I'm like, okay, you know, I'd like to have one of those. So when I got out of rehab and I was at home, because I did sign out and got my manual chair, they said, a Smart Drive? Most of the time, people, they don't ask for equipment like that till about a year and a half, till they acclimate. I'm like, that didn't make sense. I'll just let it pass, right? So then there's a standing frame that do research. It shows that if you get into a standing frame, it increases your bone density so your bones don't get frail from sitting around in a wheelchair all of the time.
And this is to explain what a standing frame is.
A standing frame, it looks like an elliptical machine, but what it does is when you get in it and sit on it and you crank it, it stands you up. Spasms, nothing can.
Just like what it sounds like.
That's right, it stands you right up. So they said, you're over 21 years of age and you're paralyzed. What do you need to stand up for? I'm like, whoa, this is taking me around the world with these kind of responses. This is what the system's telling me. So then I'm like, you know what? It's going to be some point that I'm going to be wanting to get mobile again. So I'm going to get a vehicle. They like, a vehicle? What? People don't ask that are paralyzed. They don't ask for a driver until they're about 5 years in. And I was like, oh man, y'all blowing me off here. I can't get with this. So I started square one. Let's work on getting the Smart Drive. So I'm like, okay, come through here in a calmer attitude. Look, what does it take to get the Smart Drive? Well, you gotta have the PT, OT, and your primary care physician to all sign off on it and say that you need it. I'm like, okay. I just learned about ChatGPT December 23. And I'm like, oh, this is amazing stuff right here. So I went to ChatGPT and said, hey, I need a Smart Drive. I'm 62 years old, and I need this and I need that. So, and I needed to save my shoulders and this, and I needed to convince the PTs and the OTs, and I needed to tell all of the benefits. No commas, no periods, no nothing. Just a word it all in there. I'm like, hey, this is good. So I went through it, reformatted, revamped it a little bit, took it over there to my PT first. She's like, Mark, this is good research. This is good study. This is real good. Hey, yeah, like, I'm a senior citizen. I'm 62 years old. It's like, you don't need an old dude, getting the shoulders all wore out. They like, okay, this is good. Okay, pass it on over. I said, pass it over to the OT. She passed it over to the OT. She looked at it like, this is good. They pass it. I said, well, pass it on over to my primary care physician. Pass it over there to them. Boom, get it done. Then the insurance company said it takes 2 months. I'm like, 2 months for what? I said, look, in June, it's like in May. I'm like, in June, my company wants to send me out of town for a work conference, and I need to have mobility. And they like, well, we'll see what we can do. So I contact the manufacturer. They like, we don't talk to patients. I'm like, well, no, note this, my name, give me your name. I talk back to my vendor, and they end up saying, okay, well, blah, 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 blah. 2 weeks later, I have my smart drive on my chair. So then the same thing happened with the standing frame and also the driving my vehicle. So I remember the nurse came into my room one night because he's paraplegic. They have to transfer you every 2 hours so you don't get bed sores because you're just laying there numb, right? So she came in there, she was rough handling me. And I've been in the construction industry since 1986, so I'm like, I know how to talk and deal with the gatekeepers really good so I can get to where I need to get to, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna use this nurse as one of the gatekeepers. I'm like, if you, and I talked to her real calm about how she was handling me. She looked in my face, she said, Mark, thank you for teaching me how to be patient with a patient. I'm like, wow, okay. So let's work with this. So between talking with the nurses and the PTs and the OTs in the system on how to manipulate me and work with me, and using chat and AI to talk about how to get, do that self-advocacy to get the assistive technologies, I'm like, I'm on to something. Because what I notice about people who suffered this paraplegia or traumatic injury, especially becoming paralyzed, they go dark. They go real dark. They don't want to come out. I went to one of my community networks for disabled but not really, Wesley Hamilton's group. And we were out in the parking lot. And one of the Willie guys, he said, Mark, how long you been in a wheelchair? I'm like, 6 months. He's like, 6 months? Man, I thought you'd have been in the chair 4 or 5 years with your attitude and your movement and spirit. I'm like, I said, how long before, you guys? He said, I didn't come out of my house for 2 years. I was like, 2 years? Dude, did they have you locked up or what? He's like, man, the world's got too many barriers. Look at the sidewalk. Look at the hump. Look at the threshold, the doors you can't open. I'm like, that kept you in your house? He's like, man, it's scary out here. I'm like, boy. So I'm like, my mind's eye is, a person has to speak up for themselves to get stuff done, self-advocacy. And I just embraced it really hard. And a matter of fact, vocational rehab, who's helped me with assistive technologies, because it's all about Missouri vocational rehab, if you all don't know, or maybe some may be familiar, but they're out of Department of Secondary Education over in Jeff City. It's one of their departments. And their whole agenda is getting people to return back to work. So with that, I had a vocational rehab counselor assigned to me, because I'm trying to get back to work. And I told her, because she's like, Mark, you are persistent and, a whole lot of other stuff, right? And she said, I said, this thing that's happened to me has opened up another opportunity for me. I think I'm gonna take this and promote self-advocacy to people because there's a lot of people suffering, man. So I said, how you gonna do this? I'm gonna do some public speaking on it. She's like, you know what, we got a conference coming up in June June of 23 for a statewide conference. And then she said, all in the same sentence, but they probably already got somebody already selected for it. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, why don't you ask in? So she asked in, and they emailed me and said, well, Mark, do a virtual conference call with us. So they had, I call it a government virtual system. I mean, it was so cumbersome, I couldn't even figure it out. So, they had the screensaver up there while I'm trying to get through the virtual call. And I'm looking around the screensaver at the camera at them like, look, I know you can't hear me. I don't know sign language or nothing, but I'm moving like I can get out. So when we did cancel out and reboot and the audio came in, they said, you got a lot of energy. I'm like, hey, I was trying to let you know that I'm here. I'm going to come in loud, right? So those were the three women who were the deciding factor. And they like, oh, yeah, we want you to be our keynote speaker. You'll be a closer for the statewide conference. Would you do it? I'm like, yeah, I'd like to do it. They say, okay, well, we'll send you the paper. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I charge a fee. They like, we don't pay the keynote speakers over here. It's all volunteers. Like, this is my occupation now. We don't give away the occupation like that. They said, well, go ahead and make us out a proposal and let's see what we can do. We made out a proposal. I made out a proposal. We met where we needed to meet, and I got to do it. But I had an hour on the stage with them, and it was amazing. That was that piece, one piece in there where it said the keynote speaking. And it was at Tentera over there, Ozark area over there, and it was really cool. I had on my sailboat shirt up there, did a little workout so I could look like I was fit up there, and got up on the stage, and we went through the presentation, and it had Sharon in there, showed our lives and how we were moving and grooving before, then how I went injury and then went down, got rehab, got recovered. Then I got assistive technology. I got back to work. And then I showed them an opportunity because inside their fold, when I do, presentations or get with people, I always research them before. So they did like $38 million in servicing for individuals with disabilities. And they had to focus on the 10% of people. And so that was only 3,000 people. But those 3,000 people, they generated like $64 million in income. We're not talking about rooftops. Now we're talking about getting those 3,000 people back to work. They generated $64 million in income. And see, my agenda for Missouri MOAT was to talk about assistive technologies and getting people back to work. So I'm like, look, we doing important work. Y'all got me back to work. I'm like, for 2023, I'm gonna be part of y'all's reporting of getting people back to work. So I started pointing out the development projects that I'm working on. I'm like I had one screenshot up there where it showed we're doing a community for domestic abuse women with children. It's $11 million project. Then a project where it's developmentally disabled, it's a $38 million project. And I'm overseeing those projects. I'm like, y'all got me back to work. I'm proud. So that's what took me way down deep into promoting self-advocacy.
It's interesting when you call it promoting self-advocacy because the approach you're taking, like you can go to a hospital and you can, when you get checked in, they can assign you a patient advocate that is there to help translate maybe what the doctors say and help represent you to the healthcare providers while you're in the hospital and so on. But you're looking at this, your advocacy for self-advocacy is with the system.
Correct.
You are not with the patients helping them, which is needed, but you are trying to make the more disruptive, the bigger change and help the system understand why the system needs to change to help the individuals that have these physical disabilities and these physical barriers.
Absolutely. It is so important because just like the Missouri Assistive Technology counselors, they kept their head down working and getting people back to work. They didn't know the important work they did. When I showed them how much money that they helped generate getting people back to work, their jaw was dropped. You know, they came up to me afterwards like, wow, we had no idea. It's just like the PTs and the OTs, because I point out to them that you all are doing some amazing work. It's empowering work. You may not know the breadth of how empowering what you're doing to get people reactivated is. So that's why I'm working on that front versus working directly with the patients. Now, I work with patients and clients, well, they're just patients, just on a sense of when people say, Mark, I need you to talk to my uncle. I need you to talk to my cousin. And we do virtual calls and everything because people need to know, look, it's a life after. It's not just about surviving. That's just thriving for me. And you can do this too. I mean, I couldn't do nothing. I couldn't open up a Ziploc baggie when I got home. A Ziploc baggie, and I love them smoked oyster cans. I couldn't open up a can. It's like, Jesus, Sharon! It's like I got to lean on my wife for everything. Boy, that was driving me nuts right all by itself. And Sharon, she's an independent drill sergeant anyway.
Yeah, what'd you tell me about Sharon? Sharon's learned that when you yell, that's because you really need something.
Right.
Because there was probably a lot of those times she's like, no, you can get it.
Right.
You're good.
It's like, I'm like, babe, I would not call you if I really didn't need you because I really don't want to lean on you. But yeah, that's the reason why I'm going for the self-advocacy for this system.
So that's on the healthcare side.
Right.
Now, you also have, a lot of your self-advocacy in terms of the healthcare side of this thing, as you and I discussed before this, comes from your technology background. The idea that these technologies exist and you understand how these things work. You understand how some of these systems can be beneficial for the patients.
Oh, yeah.
And you just need the system to understand that. You also have, go ahead.
No.
You also have a background in the built environment. You have, decades and decades of experience in the built environment.
You don't have to say it that many times, right?
Well, yeah.
Decades and decades.
I have to say I'm younger than you. But I'm not far behind you. So
right.
I feel like you and I can talk about age.
That's right.
Most friends here. That experience in the built environment, how's that changed now? Like, how do you look at the built environment differently?
Hyper-focused now. Yeah. Now, see, let me back up because as a bicyclist, I've been hit by cars, so I've got banged up, so that caused me to have both hips replaced at an early age, right? So when I was marrying Sharon in 2003, I told her I'm gonna have to have a hip replacement, right? So I go through the surgery and they botched up my hip, right? So I'm like, oh my God, I just married this woman. She'll send me back like damaged goods. It's like if I start coming in here like that, right? So I'm coming out of the shower and I grab the handle and I'm being careful because, they made my leg 3/4 of an inch longer. That's crazy. That's how the lawsuit land there, right? But I stepped down and I broke the shower door glass on plate glass door. Boom, it exploded. Sharon, she ran in there. I'm good. I had the handle still in my hand. And I'm like, in my mind, if me, a professional in the construction industry, thought that this plate that's 5/8 inch plate glass with a shower handle on it was strong enough for me to hold on to, and it's not. Just what about the other people that don't have a clue about what's not a safety bar? So what we did was we converted our construction company. We always kind of focused in the residential and did light commercial tenant finish stuff. But we converted our construction company to home modifications for aging and people with disabilities. That was back in 2004. So I created curriculum. I've taught continuing education courses for licensed contractors and professionals in the CE world. All about home adaptations. Our company, we opened up the whole region, Greater Kansas City region, for home modifications for people with disabilities and the aging population. So I'm like, okay, that's what happened, right? So I tell you this, I remember I was talking to my lawyer when I got out of rehab. He's like, Mark, I feel like I'm like Ichabod Crane dealing with what you do. He's like, man, you were doing this 10, 15 years ago. Now you need this stuff. I'm like, you telling me? Because in the hospital, they put me in a sling and they lift me up and flew me across the room all the way to the commode. And I'm like, I'm up in the sling, you know, backside hanging out, you know, and I'm like, wow, I put 7 of these in people's houses myself personally. I never got in one. I left my people in there and I run it from the floor. Now here I am flying around the ceiling in a sling, and I'm like, wow, this is just, wow, mind-boggling. So now for accessibility and modification, I have hyper-focus on barrier-free access for people with disability. I mean, having a universally designed, because people confuse a discipline called universal design with ADA. ADA is public. That's all public, and they got some pretty rigid standards. But universal design has like 7 principles involved with it, you know, for seeing, height, ear, everything usable, but usable by all. So I'm building a curriculum that's going to incorporate both universal design and ADA, and I'll be, you know, facilitating that to architects, engineers, and professionals. I hold a Class A contractor's license and also a licensed real estate broker. So I got a lot of insight and a lot of connectivity, but the built environment, it's like, it's suffering. It is suffering, you know, and I feel really blessed to be in a space like where these 2 projects that I'm working on currently, and I get to parlay this type of work in so nobody has to miss out on having an accessible opportunity.
Now, you said something, you know, when we were talking previously, we were talking about the idea of a place being accessible. You know, you were talking about sidewalks and doorways and different things like that. You said something to me I'd never considered. You said you walk into a coffee shop, or, you know, you roll into a coffee shop and, you know, the pastries.
Right.
You were telling me about the pastries.
Yeah. You know, Wesley did want to post on that, whereas he was like, they call this accessible, and he can't even see the pastries up in there.
You just can't even see some of the pastries.
Because the counter's too tall. And, you know, for me, going into, and that's what I was telling you, I'm waiting on some equipment to measure the pounds per pressure for doors. So I can pull my little pocket gauge out and push the door and see if it's got 6 pounds on it or not, or over 6 pounds. And I go in places and the door's too heavy. Boom, I make a ruckus. People run around the corner, they think I might have fell out the chair or something, right? And I look at them like, this door's too damn heavy, right? It's like, you know, just try and get them, at least get their attention calls to that. You know, because I'm in pretty good shape, whereas I can pull through doors and stuff, you know, because people come running behind me where doors that don't have power operator. And by the time they get to me, I've already swung all the way through there. They're like, yeah, you're pretty strong. I'm like, I'm just trying to get through, you know.
So now what's the reception been? You know, for a lot of your peers, a lot of the people you've worked with for a few years, what's been the receptivity to paying more attention to these things, to things like universal design and to listening to you now?
It's opening up so vast. It's amazing. They're embracing it because I can talk about it in such a casual conversation, and being that they can see that I'm living the experience of it, and then they know my background. So it's not, I'm not just, you know, ponying up, you know, just saying stuff. It's like, look, you know what, if you make this more accessible, you can even expand your client base, you know, talking to, you know, retail outlets and establishments. You know, I went to a gym out here on Broadway, and the door, you know, the threshold was huge high, and the old building, and I rolled into that door, and, you know, I couldn't even swing into it. And I thought, I was like, boy, you can swing right through anything. And they came and rushed around the corner, helped me, and I'm like, dude, y'all need an opener on here. So I got a contractor now that can pop an opener on somebody's establishment, you know, in 4 days' notice. So we go around, we help people getting those door openers, power openers on.
What do you hope for, you know, the able-bodied population? What do you hope to achieve with the work you're doing right now?
That's a great question. That's a great question. With the able-bodied persons, to now be more aware of the inaccessibility for a person who may have a physical challenge. because the person that has a physical challenge, they may not say much at all. They may keep it to themselves. They go dormant. Because I believe, and I told you this, and I believe sometimes the healthcare system's waiting on us to die anyway, because things are so expensive. It is insane. I know everybody able-bodied has the same issue with high cost of medical, but I'll tell you, I'll circle back to it. But when I go to the wheelchair shop, these brakes are $300 a pop. That motor on the back of my chair is $7,000. It's been in the shop 6 times in 1 year. They wanted to send me out of there without it one day, and I raised so much sand and called a regional person that they had them put a demo on my chair because I can't get in my ramp in my vehicle without this motor on there, because even though I'm in good fit, it's just too steep. I end up teetering back or falling back. So making more awareness to able-bodied individuals that having more accessibility, it's just a better environment for all of us. I mean, you never know if it's a relative or a loved one who may have a physical challenge, and even the aging population. I mean, there's physical challenges with them. A person is short. When we were modifying people's homes with adaptations, and remodeling kitchens, some of them were really high-end designer stuff, whereas, we'd put in Rev-A-Shelf pullouts and things out of the counter where you can open up the cabinet, metal racks, pull it out, and hydraulic drop right down in your face from a 43-inch high, ceiling height cabinet, shelves come down. We've done all of that. But we've also done, government projects, whereas we would do what I call What a Difference a Day Makes, a bathroom modification, whereas my crew, this was back when we were doing this active remodeling. We haven't done it lately, but we show up at 7:45 in the morning, and as soon as a person let us in at 8 o'clock, boom, we roll in there with the carpet protector or a rubber mat, whichever the hardwood floor versus carpet, roll it out. Come in there with these pop-ups that create a corridor, so a dust protection goes right to the bathroom in our area. My carpenter goes up in there, tears out this 24-inch door, because a lot of homes have 24-inch doors in the bathroom. It's like insane, right? So tear out the 24-inch door. Electrician comes, moves the outlet and the power up. Plumber comes. Now we demo out the bathtub, the shower, and everything. We put all of that back in and tape and finish it out at like 6:45 in the evening. So at 13 hours, we were up in, 12, 13-hour project, we were up in there, and they had a whole modified bathroom that was ready to paint. So I used to say that, what a difference a day make. That old song, what a difference a day make. Yeah, 24 hours. Yeah. Amazing. But it's life-changing. Yep. When I can remember when we first put in our first stair lift, and this lady, we had the project, the Johnson County aging department, they funded our project. So I didn't know much about that stuff, right? But what I did observe is this mother, this senior citizen, she had all her stuff around her seat where she was seated in her house. And anytime one of her grandkids or something would go up, she might have them bring something down. And, I was just observing it because we were in there, because we were there a day, a couple hours in that day. And I noticed that. Boy, we got that stair lift put in. Man, that lady, she leaned on me and she cried. Boy, made me cry. And she's like, you changed my life. And I'm like, wow. Just putting in a stair lift so she could go back upstairs in her house. It's so many little nuances and little things that a person could overlook that don't mean much to some if you're able-bodied, but it's a major challenge. Cracks in sidewalks, heaving sidewalks, all of that stuff can be dangerous. I was over on the plaza, and what I thought was a wheelchair drop access, I went through there and my foot plate hit that plate and it threw me out into the street and my knees folded up behind me. It was like unbelievable to see a car stop in the street coming at me while I'm laying out here in the street. My wife, she's screaming and hollering. I'm laying out in the street. My knees are bloody and all them, because it done propelled me right out in the street. A guy, he came and picked me up like a baby, and I was really scared that he picked me up, because, you know, you don't want to be handled wrong when you got, you know, all this fusing going on. He put me back in my wheelchair and walked off. It was like an angel. But it was amazing that things that you just take for granted. We were just walking on the plaza casually. She was walking, I was rolling, I had my smart drive back there. We just enjoying life. And boom, now I'm catapulted out in the street and a car is hitting at me. It's like, wow, life can change again.
I hesitated asking you this the other day, but I want to ask you again. What's the hardest part of this been for you?
The hardest part, wow. I don't even, you know, putting on pants, really. Encountering things that you can't do anymore. It still challenges the mind. When I got home, in my home office, I couldn't reach my blinds. I love the sunlight. It's like, oh my God. I can't even reach the blind cord. Little simple things that one would just take for granted. It's just like coming up these steps. You know, it's like that ramp. Now I know enough sense to say, hey, maybe somebody get behind me in case this don't work out right. Because I've had my share of falls, so I'm like, I'm a fall professional now. You know, it's like I could probably be a stuntman. But I don't like falling, but I've had my falls. I'm like, I got them all out in the first year. So now I'm like, we're not gonna fall. Well, we're gonna call it off.
Man, you're driving by yourself. You're doing all the things, right? And people said, you know, this is something that somebody does 5 years down the road. Right. No, you got this. Yeah. What's been the best part of this?
Helping people and inspiring people to know that you can really be A-okay. That's the best thing about it. When people can know that even though you have such a life traumatic change to just boom, change you out. Because, you know, I golfed, I did everything. And now I can't do none of that, right? And they got golf standard for cards. I just haven't chested it out because I don't have that core yet to hold myself up. But to know that people can see me in less than 2 years, the recovery, because when, you know, you remember on my Facebook, I told people in my Facebook journal that I'm gonna take y'all on the spinal cord recovery journey.
Now that's no BS though. That's no bullshit, because right. Now you showed me the other day, like you've been really diligent about putting your story out and making sure that you're kind of documenting kind of this journey you've gone through from a recovery perspective. And to me, you know, when I think of who I knew in, you know, June of 2022 when we opened the space, and we did the ribbon cutting and all of that, to, you know, now, when you talk about recovery, I'm like, Mark, you know, you're a paraplegic. Yeah. What's recovery mean?
Oh yeah, that's what I showed you. I'm like, look, you know, when I couldn't move my right leg, right? Yep. It's like, look, woo-hoo, I could move my foot around. I could move my toes around inside there. The doctor told me one time when I did that, he's like, you know that's not supposed to happen. I said, not according to my God. He said, you are in the 1 percentile. Only 1% of people have that kind of recovery who sustain that kind of injury.
And you said at some point your personal goal is to walk.
Yeah, you know, I got that thing, whereas I say, I got A and B. Okay. A is I get full recovery. B is I'll be the baddest mofo on the speaker platform. For sure. You know, telling people you could thrive versus just survive. So I'm waiting on A to manifest, but I'm working B at the same time. There you go. Yeah. There you go. So, you know, because the thing about getting the hopeful to say, I'm going to walk, I don't want to set myself up. But I'm going to work toward it. I'm working toward it. So where I go to therapy, they don't call it therapy where I go. I go to a place called Next Step Kansas City out in Overland Park. Insurance don't pay for it. They're like, we don't touch that. they got amazing stuff going on out there. That's what some of that stuff inside that video, the exercise, because it's facilitated exercises. And that's stuff what they got going on. I go there 2 days a week, Mondays and Thursday, and they kick my behind. I come out of there and I sit in the parking lot, you know, they thinking I'm out there, you know, just emailing or calling. Heck, I'm taking a nap. They beat me up so bad in there. But my thing is I tell them, if I don't come out here exhausted, y'all not doing y'all's job, right? I went in there with that kind of attitude. Man, they showed me like, okay, we gonna show you. So it's been working, and I got a lot of recovery stuff going on. It's like amazing.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your story.
Man, thank you.
It's an amazing story. It is, and I think about all the, you know, sitting here listening to you talk about the rules, the regulations, the organizations, the information that you have, that you've attained, and this is all in such a short amount of time. You've just dove into this to become the expert and to become the advocate. And I'm thankful for, you know, knowing you and being friends with you, and that you've been willing to share this story and to help other people. So thank you for that.
Yes, it's good stuff. You know, as I share with you, I'm building housing, some single family housing that's focused all on, and these are my own projects for people with disabilities, you know, to create because I did not know this until I became disabled, that out of 82 million single family homes, there's 129 homes, but that's include multifamily. This is a 2021 record data, right? But there's 82 million single family homes. Less than 1% are wheelchair accessible. 820,000. So I just said, okay, what's that divided by in the 50 states? It's like 14, 16,000. And you know, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like that, less than 1%. So I'm like, look, I'm gonna spread the word. Look here, all you builders, developers, and everybody, y'all need to just join the bandwagon here and start building some houses that are accessible. Because people are gonna age and people have disabilities, and it's a serious market. I'm not kidding, that's no secret, it's a serious market. So we're building out a little like a micro community. And I'm gonna see how it goes.
I don't have any doubts it's going to be very successful, man.
Yeah, bro.
What else? Is there anything that you wanted to share that you haven't had the chance to talk about tonight?
Embrace people who have physical or who have disabilities or who may have a challenge. And just, you know, be conscious of, you know, more awareness to it. And it's better for all of us.
Well, I want to have you back and come back and talk about the progress you're making as a speaker, as a patient, as a self-advocate for the healthcare system, and as a champion in the built environment.
Be glad to. My website for my speaker platform is markirvin.net. Markirvin.net. It's all set up, ready to go. So, you know, I just hired a team to help get me booked and, you know, make things happen. Because it's a space and a gap that needs to be filled to, you know, get this out there. Thanks again, brother.
You bet, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna need some help going down that ramp. I'm gonna back down.
Thank you for tuning in to the Disruption Lab podcast, brought to you by the Keystone Innovation District and recorded live at Keystone Sessions. I am your host, Kevin McGinnis, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to tune in next Thursday for more insights from entrepreneurs, innovators, and industry disruptors. Until then, keep challenging the norm and making waves.